Hello, welcome to An Imperfectly Perfect Life, Life Unscripted. I'm Shari, Leid, your host, and today I'm excited to bring to you a person who I consider one of my newer friends. I met him a few weeks ago at a conference in Phoenix. It was the National Speakers Association conference, their big yearly influence conference, where speakers from all around the country fly in and get together. I heard so many amazing stories and learned all these different interesting topics that people are speaking on and the value they're bringing to our communities. And Michael's story really stood out to me. And what he teaches has really sat on my mind. And I've thought, okay, this is making a difference in my life. I hope that I could bring him on my podcast so that he could share what he does, because I think it will make a difference in your life as well. And he said yes. So I have his introduction here. I'm going to read it because I don't want to leave anything out, but you're going to really enjoy this one. Okay, here we go. Today's guest believes that kindness isn't just a nice to have, it's a life changing force. Michael Neece has built his career and his life around the idea that small acts of kindness can create ripples of connection, trust, and opportunity in ways that we can't always predict. Michael is a leader, author, and business consultant who believes that kindness is the key to building a future we all want to live in. His wide range experiences include leadership and educational roles in traditional corporate settings, as well as, get this, planetariums. Michael has developed a unique approach to helping teams thrive by talking about kindness through a cosmic lens. Michael is the author of In Kind, Consciously Craft a Meaningful Life and Career. And he's the host of his podcast, which is called Our Future is Kind. This is a podcast where he interviews executives, futurists, politicians, artists, writers, and community leaders to help his audience ponder: what should the future be like? Who will be there? How can we craft it carefully into what we want and deserve? Michael lives out his truth that kindness is both powerful and practical. In our conversation today, we'll explore how kindness can transform relationships, open doors, and even change the trajectory of your life, and why it's often the simplest, smallest gestures that make the biggest impact. Stay tuned. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Shari. How are you?
I'm good. You have the coolest background.
No, yeah, it's supposed to look like the future that we're trying to build together, right?
It does. It looks like the future. Was it modeled after any specific city?
Not that I know of. It's just a good piece of artwork that kind of makes you wonder where are we heading together, right?
Well, that's great. And you have the Our Future is Kind. And you and I met at a National Speakers Association conference just recently. And I was just blown away by your story that you talk about your life is about kindness.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I'm in my 50s and I've come to this a little bit late, but it was just across so many different industries, so many different jobs that I was in within each industry. Yeah, it just kind of it accumulated over time that the moments that we all remember are the moments when somebody's really unkind to you, or the moments when somebody is kind to you and you weren't expecting it.
That's so true. That's absolutely true. And I've been thinking about this, and not just today, I've been thinking about this since I spoke to you. What is the definition of kindness? What is your definition of kindness, of being kind?
Yeah, when you are doing actions or when you are in some way taking an action that benefits other people with the knowledge that we are lucky to have each other in this vast cosmos, we're lucky to be here for each other. To me, that's what kindness is all about.
Well, that's really interesting because I spoke to a woman not too long ago. She's a psychotherapist, and we spoke about codependency.
Sure.
And, and so, a lot of times, trying to define, what's kindness, what's codependency, kindness. So if you're doing something basically for someone else, but it
Right.
doesn't have to be doing something. I mean, I
Right.
guess I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. Like
Yeah. No, no,
what
no.
makes
I'm
somebody
with you.
kind versus somebody kind versus somebody a pushover?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think of codependency, or when we are kind of being in that pushover mode, as being when you have to make another person feel a certain way so that you can be okay, right?
Oh, that's a good definition.
So Sherry, let's say that you are suffering and I come and I help you in some way, right? You fall over and you spill all of your groceries as you're walking down the sidewalk, and I come over and I try to help you. I see that as an act of kindness. Whereas if I walk into a room and I see that you're not feeling okay and we've known each other for years, then me tiptoeing around and not being who I am and trying not to trigger you, that's not an act of kindness. That's a bit more of I'm going to sacrifice who I am and what I think and feel and believe so that you will feel a certain way. And to me, that's not kindness. That's codependency, or that's being a pushover.
That was such and we didn't prepare. I don't have any questions prepared, so we didn't prepare for that. And that was such a good example. I appreciate that.
Thank
And
you.
so you said you came into this a little later. I'm thinking this is so evolutionary. I can't believe that you've been doing this for as long as you have. What is it that you saw that was missing in the workplace and where you work that you focused on kindness? And how the heck does this become a living?
That's a really good question. So I started off working out at a planetarium on the north side of UNC campus. There's this wonderful planetarium called Moorhead Planetarium, and it's the place where all of the astronauts got trained in celestial navigation. And so I stumbled
Wow.
in there in the early '90s as a student, and I guess from having a great mentor, a great supervisor who was just really kind to me. He took me under his wing. He wanted to make sure I knew how to do things and how to learn how to take care of other people as a manager, how to train people. I mean, he was just wonderful. He didn't have to do all of these things. He didn't have to be a great mentor to me, but he chose to donate his time and his wisdom and his care
Mm.
and his interest in me, and that made all the difference.
Wow.
Now, we've all been in a workplace where somebody sends off that email, and you
Mhm.
know the email I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah. The not
It's
kind one.
right. It's the email where they're trying to make fun of somebody and
Mhm.
very publicly with everybody on carbon copy,
Mhm.
and everybody's hearing, whatever outrageous accusations are coming from this very angry person. And that's the other side of what we remember in a workplace is when somebody's just deliberately unkind, they are deliberately cruel. And so it's just been across so many different industries. I've worked in planetariums, I've worked as a high school teacher, I was a
Mm.
martial arts instructor, I've been a computer programmer in pharma. So
Wow. You've worn a
in
lot of hats.
I've worn too many, I think, but in all of those, it was always the people that made the difference, right? And so
Absolutely.
so that was it for me. Was just I realized after a lot of years in pharma, boy, I should just write a book. I should write a book about how kindness is the difference maker. It's the difference between having a team where people get very quiet and they don't want to give a good idea because they're afraid it'll be made fun of, it'll be stolen by somebody who wants to get a promotion, bad things are going to happen. And kindness is the difference maker because as soon as people have a lot of kindness, there's a lot of trust. And when there's a lot of trust, people get innovative, they get creative, they get mutually supportive. And that's where the living comes from, is where I can become a business consultant showing people how this makes a bottom line impact. You suddenly have more productive teams who are really efficient, who are very innovative, and good things start to happen when you have a lot of kindness in place.
Yeah, it's not just a feel-good idea, it's a business strategy. is what you're teaching. And
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
so interesting how um, our messages align because I talk about connection, finding connection to yourself that leads to connection in the workplace and
Mhm.
teaching, leaders how to cultivate this culture of connection. But I never thought of, what we're really talking about too is how to cultivate support. And what we're talking about is kindness in this connection. And that, bleeds into your community and becoming a leader in your community. And I use the word connection, but really, I've never thought about it. And I promise you, I will not steal your keynote. But, I'm talking about kindness.
Well, connection and kindness are absolutely twins, right? They
Hmm.
are they are joined at the hip because if somebody's being unkind to you, it is impossible to connect with them, at least in
Hmm.
that moment. And if you can practice great kindness for somebody who's not been kind to you, and you can try it a few times, it's sort of like collecting data. Is this
Hmm.
person going to keep on being mean to me, or were they just having a really bad day one day and they
Hmm.
were just mean in that moment? And if you can penetrate whatever that barrier is, you've connected. And kindness is that great implement for getting in there.
And this is, what's very interesting is when we spoke, we were at a group with some other people. So it was a social gathering, and we were sharing kind of what we talk about, but also personal stories around the table. And it was your personal story of kindness that really surprised me. And the one thing we connected to because we were kind of like, I just went through a divorce. Oh, I just went through a divorce.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I didn't use the word kindness in my divorce, and you did. Do you mind sharing just a little bit? Because you had like, I don't remember what the time frame was with several events, but you kind of had what people would call the week from hell.
Right. Yes. It was hard. But what I found was it was my kindness practice that made it possible to survive it and do it standing up and feeling like I was doing it honorably. I hope she would agree. You can always talk to her and find out. But yeah, in February, my wife sat down with me and our couples counselor and said, we need to separate. And that was a bit of a surprise because I thought
Mhm.
it would be, here's a list of things that drive me bananas that you could
Mhm.
work on. And I thought that would be what was going on. But no, it was a separation. And so within 5 days, I was in a car with two dogs, a cat, all the stuff I needed to live, all the stuff I needed to work to drive to someplace because nobody ever budgets for a divorce or separation.
No,
Right?
no.
So I drove to a free place where I knew I could stay. While I was driving, one of my children made an attempt on her life.
Ooh. Mhm.
And so I got to the place and I settled in and we had a nice routine and I took the dogs out and they got to learn about the place. And then 4 days later, my wife told me
Mm.
about the attempt on my child's life. That's how disrupted our marriage was,
Mm.
that our communications were just so hard in that moment.
Mhm.
And I'm sure it was an agonizing choice for her to say, well, can I handle this on my own? Do I involve Michael? And so that must have been really hard for her. But there I was, 5 days later,
Mm.
back in the car with two dogs, a cat, all the stuff I needed to work, all the stuff I needed to live, driving back. And my wife and I sat at the kitchen table, my now ex-wife, we sat at the kitchen table to make a plan to take care of our daughter. And so then for the next 8 days, I slept on her couch. My daughter
Wow.
is an adult child, right?
Mhm.
So I went and slept on her couch while we figured out where she could go to get the help that she really needed. And then a few weeks later, I got the phone call from my wife saying, come home. And I was a little excited, but she said, one of the dogs is really sick. You can sleep on the couch next to the dog. And within 3 days of sleeping on that couch, my favorite dog died in my arms.
Oh, oh, man.
So it was like this triple whammy of like, oh no, my
It's
marriage
like
isn't going
it's
to.
like a TV show that I can't look away from, but you're the main star.
Right. Well, and it all came down, Sherry, to how do I handle this? How do I deal with this and really try to live my values? And part of it was I had to control what was within my sphere of control, within my 3 foot radius. 1 foot in front of
Mhm.
the other. What's the next move? What's the next move? The other thing was to wake up and be grateful for the good things that were going on. I had a place to stay. It
Mhm.
was a long distance away, but I drove there and it was okay. Um, I still had my wherewithal. I still had my business. I could still do things. But then there were all of the bad things that were going on. And so for that, I had to really rely on what are my silver linings?
Mhm.
What are the things I can be grateful for that came from it all? Well, in divorce, it's never a fun moment, right?
Yeah. No
Right? There's
one
not
says,
a
"Oh, I get to do that. Thankfully, I can check that one off the box."
That's right, right. Well, in this case, it was my ex-wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, is being honest.
Mhm.
And having that information was really helpful because it meant she had to go on a journey that was separate from me. I had to go on this new journey, and I had to admit to the fact that, yeah, it was the right place to go. Another silver lining, my child made an attempt on her life. She's still with us.
Mhm.
She got the care that she needed. She is thriving. She is doing really
Mm.
well. And thank goodness we talk more now. She tells me what she needs and when she's afraid and when she's upset. So that's great. And then with my dog dying, where's
Oh,
the silver
what was your
lining with
dog? What
that?
was your dog's name?
Toffee. She was so
Oh,
sweet. She was this
oh.
wonderful dog that we found at a pound.
Mm.
And and she just always looked up at me with this sort of look in her eyes of, I love you. I'll do anything that you say. And she was such a wonderful dog. So the silver lining there is that I had 3 days. I had
Mhm.
3 wonderful days to be really near my dog, to tell her she was a good dog and she was doing a great job, and to give her hugs and kisses and to tell her that she was great. So that's really what my kindness practice has provided for me. It's
Mm.
that idea that in every moment I can think of what's the next kind thing I can do. Sometimes it's kindness for myself. Sometimes you gotta, take a minute out. You gotta go and go on a long walk around a lake. Sometimes you gotta go eat a really healthy meal. Sometimes you gotta go take a nap. Sometimes you gotta go cry, right? Whatever it is, you gotta do that thing for yourself. And other times it's how can I treat, this person kindly when they're looking for a divorce from me? Well, you try to think about what are the great things that happened leading up to that moment, and then
Mhm.
what are the great things that are going to come from the new journey. So there you go. There is my interesting tale of how my year began.
Yeah, my goodness. I thought I had quite a year, but wow. So that, I forgot that when the beginning process of my divorce, I was at the end of every day, I was making sure that I wrote three good things that happened that day. Or and I would eat. I've had my kids on my, and my kids are adults too. But divorce isn't easy, even if you have kids that are in their 20s or at any age. It disrupts a family. And so I was texting them the three great things of the day and asking them what were your three great things. And I forgot that I did that, but you're right. That really helped put things in perspective. And knowing that that's what I was doing at the end of the day, I would look for those things. And,
Yeah.
sometimes it could be something simple, at least simple in our country, like a hot shower, right? Something that we take for granted. But knowing that that's something that I was going to hold myself accountable for at the end of the day, that really helped getting through something tough. I forgot about that. So when you work with these businesses, I just imagine that as you teach these skills in the workplace, this is naturally flowing back into these individuals' lives. Have you heard that at all?
I have. The trick is that you have to have leaders who are really on board with being very vulnerable and with fighting that sort of that idea that, oh, well, if I'm kind, I'm a pushover.
Yeah,
Or
kindness is weakness or something, right?
right, or if I'm kind, it's going to slow us down. And what I've been able to do with different leaders is to convince them that, do you really want people quiet when you're asking for good ideas?
Mm.
Do you really want people who are angry at each other over who gets what promotion? Do you really want that sort of energy going through your group? Because you know that good work isn't happening, the cooperation isn't happening, the teamwork
Mhm.
is dysfunctional. And so, yeah, as soon as the leader is able to say, guys, I messed up, and I take full blame for this. Can anybody give me ideas of how we can get it right so we can fix it quickly and get back up on our feet? Now that leader has modeled, how do I show kindness by telling everybody I
Mhm.
get it and I know this caused some pain? Now all the great ideas are going to start pouring in, but they have to keep that drumbeat of how vulnerable can we get? How much can we
Mhm.
share with each other? And when somebody comes up with an oingo boingo crazy bananas idea, nobody makes fun of them. They say, "Gosh, that's really, I would never have thought of that. That is hilarious." And but that gives me an idea, and boom. Now suddenly you have the innovation that everybody's been waiting for because of the oingo boingo idea that somebody was able to say out loud without being mocked. It makes all the difference.
And that's the engagement you mentioned, the employee engagement that it incites. I think a lot of it is like my question about codependency versus kindness is we don't understand necessarily the definition of kindness because we, as kids, even when we thought we were being kind, it backfired on us. And so we have these ideas that, oh, if I'm kind, that means my guard's down and somebody's going to walk all over me. And I think these are like protective mechanisms that we've put up to
Mm.
survive maybe as children, whether it's our teenage years or whenever, or even if you've been through a bad relationship, all of a sudden you think, okay, I'm not going to be so vulnerable and kind because I don't want to get, walked all over again. But understanding that those messages and those I don't know if you call them shields or whatever, those protective measures that we may have put in place at different times in our lives, they served us then to protect us. But at this point, if we keep them up and they keep us from being kind, from being good human beings to one another, those are the things that prevent us from moving forward and creating these amazing relationships and being the leaders that we want to be.
I couldn't agree more. And the one other piece that I think you have in your head as you're saying it
Mhm.
is that it causes us to be unkind to ourselves,
Mm.
right? It's this whole, well, if I speak up, it's just going to get shot down, so I may as well not do it. I'm so dumb, I shouldn't say it. And before you know it, you have this inner dialogue, this critical inner parent or critical inner voice of some kind that's telling you, don't even try, you're not worth it. They don't want to hear what you have to say anyway. Oh my gosh. And then that's just so toxic for you.
Mhm.
So for any of your listeners right now, I encourage you try to watch for that. If you hear your own inner critic coming out, definitely fight against that because you're here in this universe one
Mhm.
time. It's you. You're special. You're unique. There
Yes.
is nobody who can be you other than you. And so if you stifle that, you're robbing everybody else around you
Mhm.
of a great treasure.
That's so well said. When I traveled across the 50 states, I met these women and ones who were absolute strangers. I would tell them that, hey, I'm going to get some media. This will become a book. I thought the objection would be, thank you. This sounds interesting, but I'm a private person. I didn't get that objection once. The objection that I got more than once was, oh, I don't know if I'm interesting enough for you.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the and
okay.
this was just me, a stranger sitting down and just wanting to share a meal and just talk. And for people to tell themselves, and because this happened more than once, this tells me it's more prevalent than what we realize that people are holding back. For that to be somebody's immediate reaction that I might not be interesting enough for you is heartbreaking. And like you said, like people will always ask me, who was your favorite person? What was your favorite state that you went to? And I say, I can't pick one because the whole experience wouldn't have been the same if one person wasn't there. And it's this idea that you're speaking to that we are all so unique that we're here. And the word, I've said this before on this podcast, the word weird, the root is spelled WYRD, and it means fate or destiny. So
Oh,
when you embrace your weirdness, if you think of it that way, you embrace it, you're embracing your fate or your destiny. And I strongly believe we're all here, as contributors. So,
sure.
bravo to what you're doing. I am just so impressed by. your work and your message, and as simple as it sounds, how big of an effect it can have on just our not only our personal lives, but our communities and everyone we touch.
Yeah, I love what you said about weird. I think that's true. If you embrace that weirdness, it
Mhm.
really magnifies and makes it okay for other people to be weird. So, bravo. I
And
love
more fun. A lot more fun. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. And this is really sitting on me because I've been thinking about this since our conversation and the idea of kindness. And I haven't gotten to the point where I've been super kind to my former husband yet, but we don't have as much interaction. But when we do, I will think about what you said, and I bet you'll make a big difference. Uh, Not that I'm mean. I don't think I'm mean, but I think it'll make a big difference, at least internally, what it's doing to me internally when I could lead with kindness, even when it might be a little bit of a difficult situation.
not always easy. Takes a lot of courage, but good for you for giving it a shot. Yeah.
I'm going to give it a shot. Okay. Well, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you, Sherry.
Take care. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I have Michael's contact information in the show notes and along with my own. And here's a challenge for you this week. This week, try three things. One, to be kind to yourself. Notice when you're actually kind to yourself. Number two, do something kind for a family member or a friend. It could be as simple as a nice text or kind words. And number three, do something kind for a stranger, which could be simply giving them a smile or wishing them a good day. Okay, three things of kindness this week. That's your challenge. We'll see you next week. Take care.